All right. Well, welcome everybody. I am excited to welcome you back. This is the second conversation in the conversation series, It Takes a Team. And I am thrilled to welcome to the stage a good family friend, Nicholas Jennings, who goes by Nick, no K at the end, N-I-C. And I want everybody who listens to this, whether you are joining us live or watching this replay, I want you to mark this date. I want you to mark down this date as the day that you met, even if only virtually, this young man. No pressure on you, Nick, but you've got a bright future, and I just can't wait to see what you do next. I don't normally host a podcast. This is something new, but I do love to have conversations with amazing people like yourself. And so I want to introduce you not by reading a bio. We're going to get into all of that, but really just to describe or introduce you the way that I see you. And so you are a family friend. Your dad and I grew up together. I consider him my other big brother. I always call him Big Bro. And so, my mom and your grandmother were dear friends for most of their adult lives. So we've got some deep family connections here. But I'm absolutely honored that you chose to join me on stage. So I'd love for you to take a minute or so just to introduce yourself, a couple of words about what you do and why you wanted to join this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm Nic Jennings. I'm a sports journalist, cover the New Orleans Saints, Los Angeles Chargers, Minnesota Vikings, San Francisco 49ers, and Houston Texans for SB Nation and Roundtable. Also an ESPN radio guest on ESPN Southwest Louisiana. Go on there and talk Saints football on Wednesday morning, so that's a blast as well. And I'm also the host of the Dome Discussions podcast with the No, being the No Network, something that we started about a year ago. Once a week, twice a week, we'll talk Saints football, get all the info out there to the fan base. So yeah, that's pretty much what I'm doing. Planning on moving after I finish up school at App State, getting out there to New Orleans and further indulging in that career.
Love it. Love it. So clearly you're not somebody who likes to be bored. You like to be busy. I wish I still had your energy. We're going to get into all that. We're going to get into all that. We're going to unpack all of that because, as I said, you are on such an exciting journey. So you live in and grew up in a little town called Hickory, North Carolina.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I want to start with you as a kid because in my mind you're still that twin in the stroller when I ran into your mom and dad at a supermarket when you were still back up here in New Jersey. What was it like to grow up in Hickory?
It was different. Growing up in the household that I was raised in, it was still very up north cultured. So just being in the South, it was never really felt like home until I got a little bit older, got into high school, started making these friend groups that now I consider lifelong friends. But it's different, especially being a Saints fan. Carolina Panthers around here have to deal with stuff like that. But Hickory's a small little town. You really just focus on yourself. That's really what I've been doing while I've been here. I'm trying to expand into a bigger market, which is why I'm trying to go over to New Orleans. Perhaps I could even go to Los Angeles for the Chargers if that works out. Really just looking to get into a bigger market. But yeah, Hickory, there's a lot to indulge into the Hickory, the car accident and all that stuff. But I know we'll be getting into that later.
We'll get into all of that. And Hickory is kind of known a little bit more nationally as a furniture hub, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of furniture manufacturers. It's also there's a lot of railroads. There's a lot of down. It's a very small town. I don't really know how to explain it, but um, very small capacity as well.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So when you were a kid, and we're gonna sort of start pre, your when you were 9 and kind of the pivot event, which we're gonna absolutely get into. Um, you got into your love of the sport of basketball. I know you've talked a lot about
Yeah,
NFL and your background and your professional calling, but back then, life was all about basketball. Um,
absolutely.
how did you first discover that first love?
when I was a really young kid, I would be bored at home, and I would just go outside and shoot on the basketball goal. I'd be out there from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Parents would have to drag me inside. I just really grew a love for it. It was something that relieved a lot of my stress. So when I grew older and was able to play on these organized teams, I really just fell in love with the game. And unfortunately, due to injuries, I wasn't able to continue playing. But it definitely was a huge part of my childhood and still is part of my life today.
And that kind of formed your first dream, right? Of kind of pursuing that as a path. How did you know you were good at it?
Just I did it every day. That was all I did. My life was basketball. I'd get home from school and I'd go to the YMCA right across the street with all my friends, and we'd be there until we had to leave, until they closed. And that was just every single day. It really just became what we did to hang out. We would just go play basketball. So just doing it so much, you kind of just get better over time, and it became a passion of mine.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Um, okay, so we're gonna get to the pivot point. So when you were 9 years old, you were in a pretty serious accident.
Yes, ma'am.
So I know there's some memories, but mostly it's been recounted to you what happened. You want to
Right.
share with the audience what happened to you when you were 9?
Yeah, so crossing the street right after a counseling appointment with my brother and my mom, going to get a haircut at her place of employment, literally right across the street. And my brother had crossed, and there was an SUV parked on the side of the road, so the car that was coming could not see me, and they thought that my brother was the only one that was crossing the street, and I had gotten hit, flew 30 feet. Luckily, didn't break a bone, but I did have to have some mouth surgeries for my teeth because there were permanent teeth lost at that time. Um, and it really just kind of put a stopping point into all of my plans. I was out of order for a while. That caused me to suffer some more hip injuries that I would later find out later in life, which was another surgery, which officially took me out of the sports world, at least playing wise. So yeah, it was a very pivotal moment in my life. It changed a lot, but then again, I don't think I'd be who I am today if that didn't happen. So that's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to zoom in on that for a minute, if you don't mind. You mentioned your hip, and I know we had talked about in a previous conversation that it took a while and several surgeries, and your knees were kind of bothering you. First of all, I want to just sort of say, how is it possible that you got hit by an SUV, you got thrown 30 feet, and you did not break one bone? You have magic bones? Like, what's going on there?
I wish that were the case. I've broken so many bones. I don't know how that moment I did not break anything. Yeah, it's pretty remarkable.
It really, that's the word for it, for sure, for sure. And so I know you mentioned, you kind of hinted at it just a moment ago, but we talked about in a previous conversation that some of these surgeries and follow-ups and appointments and scans finally uncovered that the core of the problem was more related to your hip than
Yep.
your knees. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so like I said, right after the accident, I would feel knee problems. Still playing basketball, still attempting. I would get home from practice and just not be able to walk. There were times where I would not be able to go to school the next day just because of how bad my knees were hurting. I couldn't walk. I would be in braces, crutches, left and right. Couldn't figure out what the issue was. Eventually, we go to an orthopedic doctor, and they did a scan of my hip, which they found that I had hip dysplasia from being a twin, and that my joint was, it should have been like this basically, but it was like this. So the hip just kept popping out of the place. And they said I had a torn labrum. So I had to go in, get the torn labrum fixed, get the hip dysplasia fixed. Kind of took me out of sports for good. Haven't ever been the same since. Haven't really been able to trust that side of my body since. But that's kind of where it led me today, though, in the sports world.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't even know if you've lost count. How many surgeries have you had so far?
Quite a few. I definitely about probably we might be hitting double digits pretty here soon
Wow.
because
Okay.
I have to get a hernia surgery not too long next month, so that'll be another one there.
Hernia surgery.
Yeah, yep,
And then I know you mentioned you have another surgery on your mouth, which is kind of
yep.
what absorbed the brunt of the accident.
Yep.
And you had the accident when you were 20, excuse me, 20, when you were 9, you're
Yes.
22 now.
Yes, ma'am.
So they had to kind of wait for your adult skull to
Absolutely.
form. Yeah.
Yeah, they had to wait until everything was done moving, and I had braces for 8 years, have had retainers for about 3 to 4 years now, so everything was just not settled yet. Wisdom teeth were still coming in, so they just had to wait for everything to settle in, and now I just have to go get that appointment scheduled.
Yeah. Well, between that and the hernia surgery, right? There's a
Yeah,
lot to
right,
it. But
right,
plus you have about 3 jobs and a full course load. So yeah,
right.
you're juggling appointments for sure. Um, so you've had your share of surgeries, more than your share, more than most humans have had to go through. You've interacted with a lot of different medical professionals, support staff, physical therapists, all of it. Any doctors or caretakers in particular kind of stand out to you as like, we the theme of this series, right, is it takes a team. And
Right.
so part of that team, especially caring for your physical recovery, you had to really rely on and really trust. Anybody stick out to you as sort of the heroes of that team?
Look, I'll be honest with you. I think my Uncle Ryan has a lot to do with that. He's an OBGYN here in Hickory, very, very experienced in the medical field, but has kind of been the guy that I whisper to when I deal with these medical things because I haven't dealt with so much. You get kind of get that fear of going to the doctor and being like, oh, well, they're going to tell you something else here right now. But just being able to talk with him about these things, let me hear his opinions, him to advise me to the correct people to go see. Those are things that I'm grateful for. I don't know if I would have that outlet if it were not for him. So I definitely give him credit there.
I love that shout out. First of all, that he's family, right? And so there's already sort of that built-in trust as part of that relationship. But it is so overwhelming to try to navigate the healthcare industry when you're trying to be a patient, when you're trying to heal, and you're just trying to follow the instructions of these medical experts. But a lot of
Yeah.
times they're speaking Greek, right? Like
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
talking about, you're talking almost like a medical professional when you're describing your dysplasia and the labrum and everything else, but it's like it's really difficult to navigate. And I know
Yeah.
for my own, health situation, I just had to align myself with the right team of doctors and then just trust what they told me and just take one step at a time. To the fact that you had someone in your life who could sort of help you be that traffic cop and help you navigate what was that next step you had to take. Because if you thought too far down the road of all of these steps, like if you thought when you were 9 and 10 that you would still be facing surgeries in your 20s, it would
Yeah,
have been overwhelming for sure.
for sure. 100%.
Yeah. So you mentioned that soon after your accident, you did go back to basketball. You tried to
I did.
continue to play, but obviously by the time you would get home, you were practically crippled from the exertion. What was the what was the conversation, or what was the moment that kind of told you or made you discover that you were done with competitive sports?
Yeah, I think it would probably be right after the surgery. It was beginning of the pandemic, so it was already a crazy time. I kind of had just given up on everything. So it wasn't necessarily basketball in general that I had given up on in that moment. I'd given up my social life. I had given up my dreams really of being that athlete. So it was a lot to handle at that moment. I was inside a lot, just by myself in my room thinking, lost a lot of my athleticism at that time, wasn't in great shape. As soon as the pandemic ended, I did attempt to go back out and play, but it just wasn't the same, clearly. Hips weaker, gotten older, not as athletic as I once was as a child, but it's still something that I enjoy doing in my free time. Still something that I have a passion for that I can use to relax, but just playing on the competitive level, I just didn't see it in my future anymore.
So here's that moment, right? That sort of pivot point after the height, or maybe it's the depth of all the different medical steps that you had to take when they were at their most intense. Clearly, you're still kind of going through it. but there was this moment that you're describing that was almost like this was the lowest point, right? Because this was
Yeah,
sort of that point in your life that you realized the person you had been was no longer you were no longer that person,
yep,
right? The physical limitations, the aging that catches up with all of us. And I know we talked about in the previous conversation, this was both, it had taken both a physical toll on you, obviously, and certainly a mental one.
absolutely.
What did it take to start to pull you out of it? And I know that that's not an instant, okay, shake it off. We're good and now we're going to pivot and everything's roses again. But what did it take for you to kind of to stand back up off the floor?
Yeah, it really took me to stop comparing myself to people and to really think that if you don't go out and do it now, it's never going to happen. That kind of led me to my first writing job. That was kind of the moment that I was like, all right, it's time. Had seen something on social media with a company that I had been following throughout my whole life, saying they were looking for writers. I'd reached out. I was debating it. I didn't think that I was ready, but again, I said, if you're not going to do it now, you're never going to do it. So I bit the bullet, and I've been there for the past 2.5 years now. So that's kind of where everything got started.
So you're talking about now your tenure with Canal Street?
Absolutely. Canal Street Chronicles.
Yeah, and it's so interesting what you said. And there are so many of us who are 2 and 3 times your age who talk us out of going after opportunities for that very same reason. Like we put barriers in front of ourselves before somebody else can, right? Because
Right.
maybe the rejection will be a little bit less painful if we just sort of talk ourselves out of, taking that shot, right? What's the
Right.
quote? You miss 100% of the shots you don't
You
take,
don't think? Yes, ma'am.
right? Let me guess, it's on your wall somewhere.
Definitely in my phone somewhere, that's for
There you go.
sure.
There you go. But it's true, right? And I think we all, young and old alike, like we all get to that moment in our heads where we talk ourselves out of taking a shot. And if you had not done that, like failure be damned. Like maybe you weren't going to get a call back or you weren't going to have the job that you have now that you obviously love.
Right.
You could have just talked yourself right back into, let me stay on the floor, let me stay in my room, and let me just, accept the fact that my life is over. What you did instead was there was that period, the life as I knew it was over, but then you kind of stood up and said, okay, but now my life is different, and what is it going to be? And you met that with optimism,
Absolutely.
which is incredible, quite honestly. Okay, so you're a staff writer for Canal Street Chronicles. Talk about how you interacted or you got connected with this guy Jordy Holtberg, because in addition to you writing for several teams, and I think you even added a couple since the last time we talked, um, all of a sudden you're also a regular guest on ESPN Radio. So how did that come about?
Yeah, as soon as I had gotten that gig with Canal Street Chronicles, I had received a message from Jordy asking if I would be willing to hop on his radio show. And obviously, I was just completely shocked at that message because I had really no experience at that point. So I do owe him a lot just for giving me that chance. I've been doing that show now for about 2 years. He's been awesome. He's really gave me some leverage in this industry. So I do credit to him a lot. He's a former LSU basketball player, former New Orleans Pelicans analyst. So he's been around the New Orleans, Louisiana sports media realm. He's been hosting this show for a long time now. And just for him to trust me to go on there every Wednesday and be the Saints insider, it meant a lot. And I enjoy doing it. It's one of the best 15 minutes of my morning every Wednesday. So I love it.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And he just happened to come across you because of your involvement in Canal Street?
Yeah, I would assume it was due to him seeing me around the community because I guarantee you I had nothing out yet. Like I had just posted the I'm joining Canal Street Chronicles and he had messaged me, so I had nothing out yet. So
Wow.
it must have just been from seeing my name around the community. I mean, that's all I could guess.
Yeah. You know what? You describe Hickory as a small town, but sometimes those
Yep,
small towns have the strongest connections,
you're
right?
right.
Yeah,
Absolutely right.
that's incredible. So you mentioned a couple of times you grew up in Hickory. you're really from, you're really a Jersey boy, you're one of us, whatever, but you got transplanted and, you slowly got this Southern accent that I don't recall you having several years ago, but I'm going to let that go. Um, but you grow up in the heart of Carolina Panthers territory.
Oh yeah,
And yet you're a lifelong Saints fan.
absolutely.
So what made you become a Saints fan?
2010 Super Bowl, Saints versus Colts, was really when I was starting to get aware with what was going on the screen, not just seeing two teams playing football. I knew who what each team was. It was Drew Brees versus Peyton Manning, two of the most legendary quarterbacks of all time, and I just fell in love with the Saints. Been a diehard fan ever since. Have the Super Bowl MVP and ticket right there on my wall, actually. So yeah, that was really the moment where I was like, yeah, this is the team. I got to ride with them for the rest of the time.
So that's your ride or die team with all the other teams you write about and all of the NFL paths in your future. Saints are your ride or die.
Will always be black and gold.
I love it. I love it. Okay, and so in addition to all of that, you've got the writing gig at Canal Street. You've got this Wednesday slot. You say it's 15 minutes every Wednesday, but obviously there's a lot that goes into that prep time and
Right,
air time and
right.
everything else. In addition to that, you co-host this podcast called the Dome Discussions.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
how did that come about? How did you form that team that became this discussion?
Yeah, so actually, two of the guys that I'm doing it with are with me at Canal Street Chronicles. They've been there since I started. Another one of them is from another company who writes about the Saints, but we had all been connected through former coworkers that have linked us up, and it all just kind of came together. We all wanted to start a podcast. We had been chatting about it for quite some time, and we're just trying to. We made a serve. I don't know what you would call it, like a questionnaire for to find our fourth member, because like I said, the three of us are coming from Canal Street Chronicles, and got Drew in, and it's been great ever since. Been doing it for about a year now. I think this month or next month would mark a year. May 19th is when we began, and it's been an absolute blast getting on there, do mock drafts, talk about trades, talk about everything going on. It's been real fun.
So I'm curious, you had three guys, yourself and two other guys from Canal Street, and you felt
Yes.
like you had to add a fourth. Why was that the magic number?
Uh, so there is it actually traces back to something or traces to something that you're going to talk about
Okay.
later with Ross Jackson.
Yeah.
So there is this my mentor Ross Jackson. I'll let you dig into that later, but he does this podcast for Locked On Network called the Saints Squad Show with former Saints wide receiver Lance Moore and a good buddy of mine, Dilly Sanders, and they always have four people. They have a host, they have three speakers, and that's just the format of the show. So we felt that it would be best if we followed somebody that we knew would be successful. And so far, it's been awesome because obviously there's time constraints. People have things going on. So as long as there's three to four people in there at a time, it's just enough people that you'll always have enough in there.
Yep. Okay. We're going to come back to Ross in just a minute. But I want to keep emphasizing to the audience, both the live audience joining us right now and the ones that are going to watch this recording on YouTube and elsewhere. On top of all of that, you're also going to school and finishing up your degree at, you call it App State, so I guess that's what
Yep.
you locals call it.
Appalachian State. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So, and what are you studying?
Digital journalism.
Very cool. I can understand why that's your interest. How many more years do you have there?
Should have one. That should be it.
Okay. Okay.
Yep. The
So
goal.
for all of us who are exhausted just hearing what your daily schedule must be and your weekly schedule, in addition to, medical checkups and follow-ups and surgeries and all that, how do you balance everything? Like what's your go-to? What's your secret to staying energized for all of these different things? And I know you enjoy them all, but they could be draining. So how do you balance all of that?
Absolutely. Yeah, well, I recently just figured out how to do that. And you really have to shut your mind off and not, you have to control what you can control one day at a time. I have it tattooed on my arm right here. You can only control what you can control one day at a time. I live by that. I die by that. If I start panicking over maybe a show I have 2 days down the road, just thinking in the future. You have to be able to tell yourself, stop, can't do anything about it right now, and relax. You have to allow yourself to relax. So being able to clear your mind on cue is something that I really had to learn how to do, because obviously there's always going to be stuff running through your mind, but you have to be able to tell yourself to relax.
I love that, and it's so true. Like the mental controls the physical, right? The things that you can control are going to help you to at least navigate and get through and somehow survive the things that you can't.
Right.
Um, does that also work for you when you're dealing with the different medical treatments that you're going through right now?
I'd say so, yeah. I would say so. You don't want to overthink and freak yourself out either. So it's always good, and that's why I kind of mentioned my Uncle Ryan, and there's also a couple other people who just kind of tell you you're good, you're fine, it's not that bad, and just reassuring you. That reassurance, it really helps when it comes to the medical stuff like that.
Yeah. There's it you can't put a price on perspective, right? And
Exactly.
having people in your orbit who, if they haven't gone through exactly what you've gone through, they at least are a little bit farther down the path and can kind of see, you just come closer to me, like Nick, keep walking in my direction, and I'm going to
Right.
help you step over or step around or step through the landmines, right? Um, and so I want to talk a little bit more about the different mentors in your life, because I know there have been several, and one you already named, who I know you credit with a lot of your success in your journey so far, and that's Mr. Ross Jackson.
Yes.
So talk a little bit more about how I know you said you sort of modeled the success structure of the Dome Discussions podcast after the way that he had done it. Because again, like why trip over the same mistakes if someone has found a
Right.
formula for success, right? But you've admired him from afar, and now you have a pretty special relationship with him. So tell us how all of that came about.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ross was somebody who, when I was just a fan of the Saints, that I followed very heavily. He's always been top of the top when it comes to getting info out, being informable. So just being able to reach out to him before I had started my career, and I messaged him asking for advice because I didn't necessarily know which direction to go. I hadn't started school yet. I didn't know if I wanted to go into podcasting, writing. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Ended up doing both, but he basically just told me to take your time. The whole, the main point of the phone call was take your time, go at your own pace, and don't compare yourself. So that was a very eye-opening conversation for me. It kind of jump-started my passion for the career that I'm in right now. Ever since I've been able to meet him at live football games, he's taken the time to come down from the press box and meet me and my father, which was awesome. He's a really genuine person who still takes the time out of his day to call me and just give me advice whenever I'm in need of it. You can always message Ross, and he's always going to get you back. So it's a mentor that I'm lucky to have, and I credit a lot, as well as Jordy Holtberg. Those two guys have done wonders for my career, and I owe them the world.
I love that. And I love when you hear stories of people who have made it, who are, you call it big time or you call it whatever, but they're kind of household names. And it's unfortunately it's a small percentage of all of the celebrities and the people in your industry that you're trying to model your path after. But it's a small percentage who are so authentic and so still humble, not forgetting their roots, not forgetting when they were, trying to grind, in the early days, and have time for not only a fan, but somebody who is looking up to them as a role model and a mentor. So I love that you gave them shout outs. I love that you continue to have connections and involvement with both of them. That's incredible. It's interesting because one of the pearls of wisdom that you just mentioned that Ross shared with you was for you not to compare yourself. And I hearken back to something you had said earlier when I said, how did you kind of lift yourself up off the floor during those those darkest times when you realized or finally had to acknowledge your dreams of pursuing a basketball career were over, or at least continuing to play, competitively for however long that lasted. And part of what got you up off that floor and into and toward that pivot toward where you are now was that you had to tell yourself to stop comparing yourself to the person you were before, the competitors you might have had, the teammates that you enjoyed. Um, I'd love to hear more about your philosophy on that because it's already come up a couple of times for you, and I feel like that's almost like a daily discipline that you have to continue to remind yourself. In partnership with this whole concept of let go of the things that you can't control and focus your mind and your energy and your actions on what you can. But I'd love to hear more of your philosophy around this whole comparison thing because we all fall victim to it of comparing ourselves to others and others' opinions.
Yeah, well, on the track of giving credit to people, my professor when I started college at community college at CVCC, his name is Jason Earnhardt. He was kind of the one who broke me out of my shell and taught me all of these sayings. He was my communications professor. When I had first started college, I was a shy, quiet, just I wanted to stay out of the way. I was avoiding everything. I was scared of everything. That's kind of what he taught me. I was living by fear. So he would tell me I don't know, these sayings or these quotes that would just end up sticking in my brain, and a lot of them I've learned to live by. Whether it be turning your anxiousness into excitement, or to not compare yourself to people, or to only control what you can control. Those are all things that I learned from him, and it just I think he really opened my eyes onto to that you have to really focus on yourself, and uh, when you look at yourself perspective compared to another, you're really just bringing yourself down. It's not, you're never going to be looking for the positive. There's never a chance where you're comparing yourself to somebody and you're you're trying to think yourself as better than somebody. That just doesn't happen. If you're thinking about yourself compared to someone else, you're usually putting yourself down. And when that happens, you have to really tell yourself that everyone lives on their own path. Something that Ross was telling me as well. And just all those quotes combined, I've just learned this mindset that you really just have to take things one day at a time and focus on what you can control.
Well, and also when we compare ourselves to, somebody who's two chapters ahead of us in the book, right? Or somebody who we think of as famous or super successful in the industry that we want to pursue, we only compare ourselves to their best attributes,
Exactly,
right? We
exactly.
don't like we don't compare ourselves to, well, they're a little thick around the middle, or they're flawed in this way or that way. We only compare ourselves to what we have assigned to them as an ideal. And so no one,
Exactly.
like to your professor's point, like no wonder we're always disappointed because we're not that's not real.
Yeah,
It's not realistic.
it's not feasible. It's not a healthy way of living or looking at things.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm curious, like with all these different things that you've got going on, you've got several career tracks and activities, you've got your degree program, you're still trying to stay, healthy, even if you're not engaged in super competitive basketball, but you're still keeping fit. Do you have like a morning ramp up routine and or like an evening cool down? Like what's again sort of your go-to for engaging in the day, like every day, a very busy day with perspective and optimism, and sort of making sure your focus is on what you can control.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say I have a routine, but I definitely do things that put my mind at ease. So, like, if I'm waking up in the morning, I know if I just get up and jump into what I need to do, I'm either going to be grumpy or I'm not going to do it to the best of my ability. So, what I like to do is get up, put some music on, just really just lock into the day, get into the day, and then once you're awake and moving, then everything can kind of start flowing, and then kind of the same thing after. Honestly, music is a real big relaxer for me. So I'll go home, I'll make some music myself. I like to kind of let the stress flow away with the music. That's kind of my relaxer, I would say.
So of course we've talked about basketball, we've talked about football. But when you just talk about your relationship with music, and I'm the same way, like I experience music, I'd say autobiographically, right? There's certain songs that bring me right back to moments in my history in my life. But as you talked about that and kind of how you lean on music to warm up and to cool down, I think of like the walk up song that, a baseball player has. So I got to ask you, what's your walk up song, or if you want to call it your wake up
Hmm.
song, but what's your like, this is the song that gets me into the right frame of mind.
That's a hard one. That's a difficult one. I'm gonna have to get back to you on that
All
one.
right, that's fair.
I sure will too. I'm gonna think about it. That's a good.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, I can just imagine your dad's going to need to get you some new Beats headphones, although I suspect you already have them. All right, so let's talk about the dream. We've talked around the edges of the dream. We've talked about some of your mentors along the way. Jordy and Ross, and look at me just acting like I'm on a first name basis with these guys. But um, you had to pivot away from that childhood dream. You kind of you found a way to let that go and to rechannel your passion for sports into something new. You're about a year away from completing your degree. I think I heard you say earlier you've got this 2-year plan to kind of resettle over in New Orleans. I want you to paint the
Absolutely.
picture for me and for our audience. What is that new dream for you?
Yeah, well, really just indulging in the opportunities over there. 2 years ago, the Super Bowl was in New Orleans, had an opportunity to go do a pop-up stand with former Saints punter Thomas Morstead, but just wasn't able to being here in Hickory and the cost of flights and the short notice and all that. But if I was there, I'd have that opportunity. I've been offered credentials for the Saints media room multiple times, but just have not been able to get over there. It's not ideal, but hopefully when I'm over there, the opportunities will start flowing. Be able to go to the press conferences, be able to hit up training camp. Those are things that I'm looking forward to, and I think could really enhance my work that I'm doing right now. Just having that inside look firsthand.
Love that. And I also love the fact that you're not kind of pigeonholing yourself into, 2 years from now, I want to be in this job. And again, I think you're a little bit wise beyond your years, and obviously, what happened to you when you were 9, I think helped give you some of that perspective, right? Like if there's a silver
Yep.
lining in something so life changing, is that it gave you a little bit more perspective on what doors could be opened for you versus what's closed off to you. And so just even having that mentality of, within 2 years, I want to resettle in New Orleans, and I want to just leave myself open to what do those opportunities look like for me, and not just automatically start closing doors that you haven't even opened yet. Again, kind of back to this whole like, why talk myself out of even putting myself out there, and
Exactly.
applying for opportunities like the one that found you, now being a longer tenured staff writer for Canal Street Chronicles. Um, you've already kind of put yourself out there in terms of not only applying for that opportunity, but also then saying yes to the opportunity that Jordy afforded you, reaching out to Ross Jackson and introducing yourself, not knowing if he was going to give you the time of day, and that obviously had a huge payoff. Think about your journey between now and when you get to New Orleans, and even 5 years from now. Is there, I'm not even gonna say is there, who is like the person that you would love to meet along this journey?
Yeah, it's got to be Drew Brees. It's got to be
How
Drew
did I know
Brees.
you were gonna say Drew Brees?
Any Saints fan, I think if you ask them that question, that's going to be who their go-to is. Just another person who really instilled mindset in me at a young age. Just his leadership style, just listening to him growing up. Those also stuff that I still live by to this day. Um, he's really just the epitome of who you want to be as a person and a leader, and that would be a dream come true. That's who I looked up to as a kid, so that would be awesome.
So now I got to ask a follow up. What's the one of all the things you could ask him or learn about from him? Um, there's no substitute for a one-on-one conversation, just you and him. What's the one question you're dying to ask him?
I have to ask him how he even kept going. Nobody wanted him. He had a shoulder injury, was going to join the Miami Dolphins with Nick Saban, didn't want him because of his shoulder, ended up joining the Saints, going through the heart of Katrina at the time, and he just brought light to everyone, to the city, to the organization, everything, even while dealing with such a significant shoulder injury and having no hope in his career and feeling like that might have been the end, to go on and have a Hall of Fame career, Super Bowl MVP after that. You really have to be a resilient human being for that. And I would love to know how he did that and take some notes on it myself.
Well, all of you who are listening to this live, and certainly when you watch this recording, any of y'all, I'm gonna say y'all because I'm talking to a Southern boy now. If you have connections to Mr. Breeze, hook my friend up here because that will just pay some dividends. And I just know if we speak that out to the universe, it's gonna
There's
happen
a
for you. So
possibility. Absolutely.
absolutely, I love that. I love that. All right, so let's talk football a little bit more in depth because I know
All
that
right.
we are you are a huge NFL fan. I am also a huge NFL fan, and while I don't dislike the Saints, I'm a Giants fan, born and raised. Like
Absolutely.
that's just my thing. Um,
Right.
so we're heading into the draft. I know you've got some intel on all the teams. Giants have the fourth pick.
They do. They have the fifth pick. The fifth pick.
Oh, they have the fifth pick. Okay,
Yes.
yeah, they're okay. Because I'm already confusing that with the uniform number of the guy that I want. Um, who
Yep.
do you who
Yep.
do you who do you see the Giants taking in the first round? And if it were your pick, who would you pick for the Giants in the first round?
Who do I see the Giants taking? I could see them taking offensive tackle Francis Maligoa. You really can't get more of a ready to play right now player, plug and play player than him. He would come in and improve the pass protection immensely, and that's something that the Giants need to do. They've been struggling on the offensive line for years now, so I think going and getting a solidified bookend tackle would definitely be a smart move. Another player I could see them going after is Caleb Downs, safety from Ohio State. Little undersized, 6 foot, but at safety you don't have to be big and tall. You just have to have that dog in you. And he is one of the more pro-ready players coming out of this draft class. Another guy who you can just plug and play, can make an impact right away. He's a day one starter, so that's another guy. And the guy that I believe you were thinking of, running back Jeremiah Love out of Notre Dame. That's who I want the Saints to go at number 8. So hopefully he lasts. But I mean, that guy is just explosive. Compare him to Bijan Robinson coming out of Texas. That's a guy that I think he's a lot like. So if he falls to pick 8 for the Saints, I will be ecstatic. But if the Giants select him at 4 or at 5, I believe him and Cam Skattebo would be an unreal duo, and I really think that would do wonders for their offense. But then again, they could also go out and get another star wide receiver to pair alongside Malik Neighbors. You got Jordan Tyson, Carnell Tate. Makai Lemon. There's also guys out there. So it's going to be an interesting draft. This first round will be one for the ages for sure.
You had me at Jeremiah Love, which you knew that was what I was leaning toward for sure. It
Absolutely.
it would really take some bad press for somebody to dig up on Love for him to drop even a number 5, in my
Yeah.
opinion. I think he's
Yeah.
just too. He was a Heisman candidate. A lot of people feel like he was the guy, but that number 1 overall draft pick who did end up winning the Heisman, hard to argue with his numbers as well.
Absolutely. Fernando.
Yeah. So the Saints have the eighth pick.
We do. We have the eighth pick. It's looking like they're going to go best player available this time. Past couple years have been really focused on the trenches, but this time should be exciting for the fan base because I know they're tired of seeing the big guys getting taken early.
So you don't see them trying to make a move to trade their future picks for an earlier pick in the first round.
Not earlier. I do see them potentially trading back into the first round for a second first round pick, get that 5th year option on a guy. Made that mistake last year, selecting Tyler Shough with the 40th pick in the second round, so they don't have that 5th year option. If they would have traded up and got him in the first round, like the Giants did with Jackson Dart, they would have that 5th year option, wouldn't have to worry about it. So I think that's definitely on their radar. But Mickey Loomis trading up is not something that happens very often.
I can remember distinctly being, as a Giants fan, being very disappointed that the Giants did not pick J.J. McCarthy the previous year. And now, of course, with the benefit of hindsight, not only his injuries, but even when he was back playing, healthy for the Vikings, who by the way then passed on Daniel Jones, who all of a sudden figured out how to play. At least it
Yep,
was,
exactly
maybe
right.
it was just bad scheme, right? Or and Sam Darnold, and they stuck with JJ.
Exactly
And I
right.
understand it. Like I understand why they stuck with their first rounder.
Yeah.
But of course, the benefit of hindsight, we wouldn't have gotten Jackson Dart, who, full disclosure, I had never heard of. But man, I'm glad we got him.
Oh yeah.
What's your thought on him?
Jackson Dart was a guy that was connected to the Saints heavily throughout the draft process last season. Went to Ole Miss, so he's not too far. Um, he was actually projected to go to the Saints in the second round. The Saints were actually going to trade up to grab him in the first, but Tyler Shuck is a guy they really fell in love with, who is now the Saints starting quarterback, who I am just ecstatic for. The future is really bright over there. But yeah, Jackson Dart is a guy can do both, can torture defenses with his legs, torture defenses with his arm. He's got moxie, he's got swagger. He's a guy that could really turn around the franchise. I think it's a really good get for the Giants, and it's somebody that they needed at that position, especially seeing how Daniel Jones has gone out and revived his career. I think it's refreshing for the fan base and kind of takes some of that sour taste out of the mouth a little bit, seeing Jones do so well.
So I'm going to keep asking you about the Giants because it's not
Yeah,
every day I get to
absolutely.
talk to such a wired in analyst. How worried should I be about Dart and Scattaboo and Neighbors, but mostly Scattaboo and Dart's propensity to lead with their heads and get hurt?
Well, I think Scat is going to be the one that you have to worry about there.
He
Let's
headbutts
just,
walls to warm up, Nick. Like,
yeah,
come
yeah.
on. They call him the goat,
And
and
every time he gets
like
up
Billy
from a
Goat because he
tackle,
like rams his head.
yeah, every time he gets up from a tackle, he's shaking his head. He's
Yeah,
off the steam. But if he could stay healthy, look, Scat is a guy who I think could just be a ground and pound bell cow back for the Giants. Look, if they don't get Jeremiah Love this season and Scat comes back full strength, has a great year, I could see them leading into the next season with him as their lead back. He's that talented. Problem is, like you said, he's gonna get hurt if he doesn't stop. But so is Jackson Dart. Jackson
yeah.
Dart needs to learn how to slide a little bit. Neighbors, I think that was just an unfortunate, a really unfortunate injury, that torn ACL. But the two rookies from last season, yeah, they're gonna have to protect their bodies a little bit more if they plan on having long careers in this league.
Yeah, well, and obviously the notes are out on Jackson. It's like go after his head, early in the first drive and
Yep.
try to rattle him a little bit. I am convinced, and I've said this to people, that Scattaboo does not feel pain,
Oh yeah.
right? Because I mean, like he had a fracture to his ankle where the bone was sticking out, and all he was focused on was getting, having somebody help him up so he could go right back
Yep.
into the huddle.
Yep.
That's not normal. That's just not
It is
normal
not.
behavior.
It is not. Yeah, he definitely thrives off of it. That's for sure.
All right, and so then my last question about the Giants, on the flip side of how concerned should I be? We have Harbaugh now,
Yep. Yep.
biggest name coach we've had in a while. A lot of us fans are very optimistic, but we get our hopes up. We've gotten our hopes up before. How optimistic should we be about this upcoming season?
I think there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic, but I think that it should be tamed optimism. Obviously, taking over a team that has not been well, they've had hope. Like obviously, there's been hope, right? But a team that has not been at the top of their division for quite some time, to take over a team like that, especially after being fired for not being able to get the job done with a roster that's much better over there in Baltimore. Those are things that you're going to have to look at. But just seeing what he did with Lamar Jackson and what he could potentially do with Jackson Dart. Seeing all the high end coaches that he brought over from Baltimore, I think that's the regime's going to change a lot, and it's going to change the culture in a positive way. This is something that the Giants needed. They needed direction. They needed a solidified leader at the head coach position. We saw Brian Dable just wasn't connecting with the locker room. There were just rumors of disgruntled players each week. It just wasn't a healthy work environment, and I think Jim Harbaugh brings one of the best you'll get in this league. So this is it's definitely going to be a positive step in a positive direction for the Giants. And I wouldn't say it'll be perfect right away, but give it a couple years, and I think they'll be right back on track.
Yeah, I have certainly admired his early focus on right sizing the culture, starting in the locker room. Some of his early decisions, his early statements, his early moves. He's excited to be, at the head of a very storied franchise. We're excited for him. Um, so yeah, we'll see. Before he became available, I was excited at the prospect, even with his baggage, of bringing Gruden in. I don't know your opinion on Gruden.
Yeah. Gruden is also a person who has been very, very connected to the Saints in the past couple of years. As you know, with the Derek Carr tenure, that abomination, that nightmare we call it. There was talks about Gruden potentially coming in as offensive coordinator under Dennis Allen. Look, I'm glad it didn't happen. I like Gruden as a coach. Obviously, it comes with, like you said, that extra weight on the back end, but he's definitely one of the better coaches in the NFL. I think if he were to get another opportunity, he would change a franchise. So I definitely could agree with your take on if he were to join the Giants, I think it would have went pretty well.
Yeah, I think he'll come back to the NFL in
Eventually, for
some.
sure.
Yeah, for
For sure.
sure. He's too good to let that baggage, which is pretty heavy, define his legacy. All right,
Right.
so let's talk about your beloved Saints.
All right.
What's your where do you see them finishing this season?
I am as hopeful as I've been in years. Right now, this division is looking very weak. Panthers just barely squeaked out a division title last season. Buccaneers lost some really key pieces. Falcons are just a dumpster fire. I couldn't even play, and I love it. I love it. I absolutely love it. But
Not a fan. You're
oh
not gonna be
no,
a staff writer for
that's
the Falcons
definitely
anytime
my
soon.
least favorite team ever, ever. Will never, ever, ever step foot in a Falcons gear, stadium, anything. Do not like the Falcons. But yeah, the future is looking bright right now. Got Kellen Moore in year two for Kellen Moore. He's really changed the culture since joining the team. Tyler Shuck has just absolutely done wonders for the Saints team, whether it be on the field or off the field. Just having a quarterback who embraces the city, who is there every day in the building every day, is not over in Fresno like Derek Carr was. Um, it's been really refreshing. There seems to be a future in place. I know Tyler Shuck got a lot of hate for being a 26-year-old rookie, but then again, 26-year-old rookie is probably going to be the most prepared rookie you're going to find, and he's shown that. He's shown that he's mature. He's like I said, he's the work he's doing in the community. It's been really refreshing, and he's attracting players. The Saints just signed Travis Etienne from the Jacksonville Jaguars, made a splash signing this free agency. He was deciding between former Saints head coach Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos and New Orleans. And mind you, the Broncos just went pretty deep into the playoffs. I believe it was the AFC Championship. Um, so for him to choose New Orleans just shows that things are heading in the right direction. They trust Tyler Shuck. They think they have a quarterback in place. Carnell Tate, Ohio State wide receiver coming out in the draft, projected top 10 pick, mentioned Tyler Shuck with Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen as quarterbacks that he'd like to play with. So the future's bright right now, and I'm really excited to see how this direction changes, how this new regime can lead this culture change and hopefully winning the big game because the Saints have been waiting a long time for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. Um, One of the future Hall of Famers at the quarterback position that you have not mentioned is Aaron Rodgers, who just ask him is the greatest of all time. Um, I'm not a big fan. My husband is a huge Packer fan, and we wrote into our wedding vows that I would always support his Packers as long as they weren't playing the Giants. But it got real hard in those later years with Rodgers doing all of the I said I was immunized, thing. Um, what do you think he's going to do in Pittsburgh? Because again, here we are in the off season where he's doing his little dance of, well, I don't know if they're worth my time, and I'll let them
Yeah.
know my decision. So, what's your thought on that?
Well, it's a really interesting situation, especially considering if he were to return to Pittsburgh for another year, he would be with his old head coach in Green Bay, Mike McCarthy. And I couldn't tell you how that relationship ended. I know it probably wasn't the best. There was not really much proof behind the pudding of firing McCarthy at that point. So I, I'd guess that Rodgers had a big say in that. Um, and the fact that he has yet to sign with Pittsburgh probably says a lot as well. because he is playing this season. He said that he's going to play this season. Um, I'd assume it'd be a 1 year team friendly deal wherever it is, obviously considering his age and just the injuries that have happened in recent seasons. But if it is in Pittsburgh, I'm sorry, Steelers fans, just have not embraced that new quarterback yet to keep on going for these old veterans. And I feel for him. I feel for him, especially after that Derek Carr stint. That was very similar, I would say. But yeah, I think Rodgers. Look, I'd like to see him return to New York. The Jets still have no option at quarterback. And with Kyler Murray, who was supposed to be heading to New York in free agency, heading to Minnesota, I see no reason why Rodgers, besides a deteriorated relationship with the front office, wouldn't make sense in New York. But New York also might be finally ready to embrace that rookie quarterback that they've been avoiding for so long. We saw him try with Justin Fields last year, just didn't turn out. So hopefully Rodgers can find a home, but if not, I think there's a possibility we might have seen the end of Aaron Rodgers.
So you really think, because I know he has said he's got another season in him. You really think he's for real? He's not just posturing.
Oh, I think he wants to play. He wants to play
Yeah,
another season, but I don't think he will if the situation isn't right. So there is definitely a possibility we've seen the last of Aaron Rodgers, but
yeah,
I definitely do think he wants to play, and if the situation arises, he's definitely going to take it.
yeah, yeah. I could talk to you about football all day long, but I
Absolutely.
promise that these episodes are going to be an hour, so I'm gonna wind this down. But just thank you for all of that intel. Um,
Absolutely.
so you have a birthday coming up this
I
month.
do.
It is
I
April
do.
8th when we're recording this. So you're going to be 23, I
I
believe.
will be. Yep.
Really hard for me to wrap my head around that, but um, we talked about perspective. We talked about even your 26-year-old rookie quarterback. One of the reasons he is showing up with so much maturity and attracting others around him on that team is because he has perspective that a traditional rookie does not have.
Right.
Given the perspective, the benefit of hindsight, what advice would you give not your 9-year-old self, because it would probably be don't cross the street, but your 10-year-old self, your 12-year-old self? What advice would you give that young Nicholas?
Be patient to, like you said earlier, don't leave any doors closed. There's options if you just open your eyes and really accept it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy. You have to accept that there's going to have to be work to put in. And going back to what I said earlier, just control what you can control one day at a time. Um, Back to what I said again, don't compare yourself. Those are all things that I would have told myself when I was younger. I feel like they would have done wonders for me back in the day. But now I'm, like I said earlier again, I don't think I'd be who I am today if I had not dealt with all of that resilience. So
Yeah, I mean, all of those experiences, even the ones that profoundly pivoted your dream, shaped who you are today, right? Shaped the
absolutely,
path that you're on and shaped your energy and your focus and your passion for this new dream. Um, you've shared a lot of wisdom throughout this conversation. If our audience remembers only one thing about you or one takeaway from this conversation, what would you want it to be?
mm, that you can always prevail. I would say that because there was no hope. There was at one point no hope, and just to see where I'm at today, um, it's surreal. It is, so that's what I would say.
I think that's your next tattoo is prevail. I
It
love
could be, it could
I
be.
mean, I love that word. I love that word. And I'm holding you to it that your homework is to come back to me with your walk-up song.
I was
Um,
just thinking about
all
that. Yes, I'm not gonna leave you hanging on that one.
right, very cool. Very cool. Because I'm going to add that to the show notes once I get this out on YouTube. Um, Nick, just thank you. I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your ridiculously busy schedule. When I reached out to you a month or so ago and said, would you have any interest in sharing this stage and having this conversation? Without hesitation, you were all over it. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, so I just appreciate how open you've been about sharing your journey. I asked you a couple of times in preparing for this conversation, was there anything off limits? Was there anything I couldn't ask you? And you said then, and you have demonstrated it today. you're an open book, and what you see is what you get.
Yes,
Um,
ma'am.
so I appreciate you. You are family. You've always been family, and I appreciate you so much for taking time and sharing your journey. And I know I speak for the audience, not only those who joined us live, but those who are going to continue to watch this recording, that I cannot wait to witness the tremendous impact you're going to make on the world, because I assure you, you already have. So
Thank you.
thank you so much, for being you, for sharing your journey, for helping us through sharing your perspective. And I wish you nothing but tremendous success.
Truly appreciate it. Thank you so much. It was a
All right.
pleasure to be here.
Thank you. The pleasure was mine. I will talk to you very soon. Say hi to your parents and to your brother, and I will
Yes,
talk to
ma'am.
you.
All
Thanks,
righty.
everyone.